Welcome viewers, thank you so much for joining us on OneNews International. I'm Katarina Amelia. Stay with us as we bring you the latest stories making headlines around the world. Because there's one thing that moves faster than social media drama. It's global news. So viewers, this is OneNews International. Kuwait Civil Aviation Authority on Wednesday, June 3rd, released surveillance footage which shows an Iranian drone crashing into Kuwait International Airport. The incident forced airport operation to be suspended after drone and missile attacks damaged airport facility and diplomatic sites. Next, we will talk about US President versus Netanyahu. US President Donald Trump confirmed that he called a tense phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday, June 1st. Let's just say it probably wasn't the most relaxing call on the either leader's schedule. So viewers, stay with us for the full story. This is OneNews International. Kuwait Civil Aviation Authority on Wednesday, June 3rd, released surveillance footage that it says shows an Iranian drone crashing into Kuwait International Airport. Operations at Kuwait International Airport were suspended after a drone and missile attack caused damage to airport facilities and diplomatic sites. Kuwaiti authorities and state media reported that one person was killed and more than 60 others were injured in the incident. According to the state news agency, the attack caused significant damage to Terminal 1, citing information from the General Civil Aviation Authority. Iran's Revolutionary Guard denied targeting Kuwait's airport, claiming instead that the destruction was caused by U.S. interceptor missiles that failed to reach their intended targets, according to Iranian state media. The U.S. military rejected that explanation, saying Iranian drones deliberately targeted the airport. The latest attacks in Kuwait and around the strategic waterway have put additional strain on the fragile ceasefire between the United States, Israel, and Iran. The renewed tensions push oil prices nearly 2% higher, while the strait remains largely closed more than 3 months after US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Flight tracking data shows several aircraft being rerouted away from Kuwait International Airport early Wednesday, June 3rd. After a drone strike hit a passenger terminal, injuring multiple people and forcing airport operations to be temporarily suspended, according to Kuwait state news agency. Recordings from the flight tracking platform Flight Radar 24 show significant disruption in Kuwaiti airspace, with aircraft diverting or avoiding the area starting around 4 GMT. Earlier, the U.S. military reported that two Iranian missiles launched toward Kuwait either fell short of their targets or broke apart before reaching them. It also said that three missiles fired toward Bahrain were successfully intercepted by U.S. and Bahraini defense systems. The incidents marked another escalation in regional tensions, with air traffic and critical infrastructure increasingly affected by the ongoing conflict.
From 1922 to present, it really never worked because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating it.
Can you explain why?
The U.S. military fired a Hellfire missile at a tanker bound for Iran on Tuesday, June 2nd, as part of a blockade campaign ordered by President Donald Trump. U.S. Central Command released video footage showing the strike and said the missile hit the engine room of the Botswana flag tanker MT Lexi, effectively disabling the vessel. Reuters confirmed the ship's identity as Lexi by matching visible features such as stern, rudder, and keel with archived imagery. However, the exact time and location of the video could not be independently verified. Ship tracking data show the vessel's last known position in the Gulf of Oman on May 26, near the broader Arabian Gulf region, with no earlier public post found after June 2nd. CENTCOM said the ship's crew ignored repeated warnings and failed to comply with instructions from U.S. forces over a 24-hour period. A U.S. aircraft ultimately disabled the vessel by firing a Hellfire missile into the ship's engine room, preventing the tanker from reaching Iran, the statement said. The Lexi is the sixth vessel reportedly disabled since the U.S. began its blockade of Iran on April 13. According to the military, 122 other ships have also been redirected after attempting to enter or leave Iranian ports.
The negotiation itself has gone very well, actually. Very well. It could happen. I mean, if it happens, it might not happen. Who knows? But if it happens, it could happen like over the weekend. Washington Monument. You take a look at Washington Monument. But as it stands now, we will go in sometime in the not too distant future. It's very safe down there. You know, with Space Force, we have cameras every angle of that.
Hezbollah is going to understand that there is now an agreement between Israel and Lebanon, backed by the United States. The pilot zone project will be guided by the United States. Special units.
Because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating it.
Can you explain why?
The negotiation itself has gone very well, actually. Very well.
Mr. President.
It could happen. I mean, if it happens, and it might not happen, you know, who knows? But if it happens, it could happen like over the weekend. The Washington Monument, the Lincoln. You know, you take a look at the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial. But as it stands now, we will go in sometime in the not too distant future. It's very safe down there. You know, we have, with Space Force, we have cameras every angle of that.
Hezbollah is going to understand that there is now an agreement between Israel and Lebanon, backed by the United States. The pilot zone project will be guided by the United States. Special units.
Because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating it.
Can you explain
I
why?
think the, the negotiation itself has gone very well, actually. As you probably have been watching, so from 1922 to present, we never worked because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating it.
Can you explain why?
The negotiation itself
US
has gone
President
very well,
Donald Trump
actually.
confirmed that he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin
If it
Netanyahu
happens,
engaged
it
in
might not
tense
happen,
phone
who knows?
conversation on Monday,
But if
June
it happens,
1st.
it could happen like over the weekend. Washington Monument, the Lincoln. You know, you take a look at the Washington Monument. But as it stands now, we will go in sometime in the not too distant future.
In an interview published by the New York Post, Trump admitted that he was frustrated with Netanyahu during the call.
Those three sites are being watched at all times. If anybody went there, we'll see exactly what's happening, and we'll blow it up a little bit further. But as far as getting it, is very good. The B-2 bombers.
However, Trump
did a
said
job
that
like
he still
nobody's ever
maintains a
seen.
very
In the
good
night,
relationship with
no moon,
Netanyahu.
dead darkness at 1 o'clock in the morning or so. They dropped those bombs.
Trump was previously reported to have launched a heated, provocative field exchange with Netanyahu. The phone call reportedly escalated due to Israel's threats to bomb Lebanon's capital. The threats came while the US and Iran were still attempting negotiations to reach a ceasefire in a war that has been ongoing since February 28. Netanyahu had publicly vowed to intensify strikes on Lebanon, while Tehran made a Lebanon ceasefire a condition for continued negotiations with the US.
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. You know, I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefires when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
Trump reportedly became angry with Netanyahu, fearing that Israel's actions could derail talks with Tehran. Iran is reported to have suspended peace talks following recent Israeli strikes on Lebanon. This information was reported by Iranian news agency Tasnim, citing statements from its negotiating team. United States is reportedly considering expanding its nuclear weapons deployment to more NATO member countries in Eastern Europe.
All the details, welcome it. But let's be clear, the trajectory of our home, which is a strong Europe and a stronger NATO, making sure we will, over time, step by step, be less reliant on one ally only as we have been for so long.
Countries such as Poland and several Baltic states are said to be potential new locations for U.S. nuclear-capable bomber aircraft.
Priorities, which are also our interests, will continue to force
The move comes after U.S. President Donald Trump pledged to send thousands of additional troops to the region. Is being discussed amid Washington's plan to reduce some of its conventional military support to NATO.
But as I say, we will go in sometime in the not too distant future. Very safe. We have this Space Force, we have cameras every angle that those three sites are being watched.
Currently, there are 6 NATO countries participating in the nuclear sharing arrangement, including the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Turkey. Officials state they continue to monitor the security situation and are ready to adjust their defense posture if necessary. Representative emphasized that nuclear deterrence reviews have been ongoing for years and are not sudden decisions. Analysts suggest that expanded nuclear deployment could increase demand for F-35 fighter jets, which are capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear weapons. Situation is seen as potentially benefiting major defense companies such as Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, and Northrop Grumman.
Within that process, you will always have organizations and announcements which are part of the
Rising tensions with Russia, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte reaffirmed that the alliance is ready to defend every inch of its member territory against any threat. The The Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives voted on Wednesday, June 3rd, to approve a resolution aimed at preventing President Donald Trump from continuing the war against Iran, highlighting growing concerns among some members of his own party over the conflict, which has now entered its fourth month. The measure passed by a vote of 215 and 208, with 4 Republicans joining Democrats in support of the resolution. The proposal calls on Trump to withdraw U.S. military forces from Iran unless Congress formally declares war or authorizes military actions. The vote marks another challenge for Trump in Congress, despite Republicans holding narrow majorities in both the House and Senate. At this stage, however, the resolution is largely symbolic. For it to take effect, it will also need approval from the Senate. In addition, legal experts continue to debate whether such war powers resolutions will be constitutional even if passed by Congress. Still, the outcome reflects growing discomfort among some Republicans regarding Trump's handling of the conflict. It also represents a rare bipartisan effort to limit presidential war, making authority as the fighting continues. Three previous attempts to pass similar war powers resolutions have failed in the House, although by increasingly smaller margins. Republican leaders even postponed a vote on the current measure last month when it appeared likely to gain enough support to pass. Meanwhile, the Senate advanced a separate but similar resolution during a procedural vote last month after 7 earlier attempts failed. Additional votes on the measure have not yet been scheduled. The 4 Republicans who broke with their party to support the resolution were Representative Tom Barrett of Michigan, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, and Thomas Massie of Kentucky. No Democrats voted against the measure, while 7 House members did not cast a vote. Cuba will suspend Visa and MasterCard transactions beginning Saturday, June 6, the country's central bank announced on Wednesday, June 3rd, citing U.S. sanctions that have recently pushed several foreign companies to cut ties with the Caribbean nation. The central bank said a foreign partner responsible for processing credit card payments in Cuba has decided to scale back its operations following a U.S. executive order issued on May 1st. That significantly expanded restrictions on trade and financial dealings with Cuba. The move represents another setback for Cuba's economy and its already struggling tourism sector, as the Trump administration continues to tighten sanctions aimed at increasing pressure on the island's communist-led government. Credit card payments in Cuba have traditionally been handled through a foreign banking partner and Fincimix SA, a financial entity linked to GSA, a military-run conglomerate that has also been sanctioned by the U.S. administration. Washington have accused GSA of discreetly controlling revenues from key sectors such as tourism, financial services, remittance, and logistics, and using those funds to benefit Cuba's military and political elite. The Cuban government rejects these allegations, insisting that GSA operates transparently and contributes to the country's economic and social development. The latest U.S. executive order has also triggered a wider pullback from Cuba by foreign companies in recent weeks, including hotel operators, airlines, and global shipping firms, as businesses increasingly avoid entities targeted by U.S. sanctions. Visa and MasterCard did not immediately respond to requests for comment. That's all for today, viewers. Thank you so much for making OneNews International part of your day. I'm Katarina Amelia. Thank you so much for watching and staying up to date with us. See you tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. only on the TV One News YouTube channel. Bye!